All right, we've got two more sections of factoring to look at. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is factoring things that have a leading coefficient that is not 1. This comes from section 5.5. And so let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Now, when factoring things whose leading coefficient is not 1, this gets a little involved. The first thing we want to note is factor out a GCF if possible. From there, we want to remember that the firsts need to multiply to A, and the lasts multiply to C. And we need to figure out both the firsts and the lasts so that the outsides and the insides combine to B. So I will tell you that this is one of the most challenging sections for students. And there's lots of different ways to factor. I'm going to show you the rules that I use when I factor, which I think are a little bit easier. In the next presentation, I'll go ahead and show you another method that you can use that's a little bit more procedural, and what I'm going to be looking for if you opt to use this method. So after years of factoring, I came up with 3 rules to help me out. The first one, we have numbers with common factors cannot go in the same set of parentheses. And I'll point this out when we get into it. If we have numbers with common factors in the same set, then you can factor out the common factor. But then you should have been able to factor it out from the very beginning. So this is one that's going to kind of help us place numbers in our factorizations. Another rule that I have is determine if the middle number is even or odd. If the middle number is even, then you want to pick a pair of even factors. If the middle number is odd, then do not use a pair of even factors. The reason that we do this is if you multiply anything times an even number, it'll be even. And also, if you add or subtract 2 even numbers, it'll also be even. Now, my third rule, this is one that's kind of a bit of a gray area. Is the middle number large or small? And for our factorizations, you know what? We may differ on our opinion of what is a large or small number. And depending on the actual problem, sometimes a number may be large, and at other times it may be small. But if you kind of use this, we want to choose numbers and placements that will maximize or minimize the result. And again, I'll show you some examples of this when we get into it. Okay, so those are 3 rules of factoring that we're going to use. So now let's go ahead and dive into some problems. Now, on top of the 3 rules of factoring that I gave you, we also have different levels of difficulty. So, for example, the first level of difficulty is if A and C are prime. For this level, you have a 50-50 shot, because if it's prime, there's only one way to factor it. And ultimately, all this boils down to is where do we put the numbers inside our factorizations. All right, so let's go ahead and look at these and see what we can do. Example A, we have 3x squared minus 20x minus 7. So I'm going to go ahead and write out my factors. Things that multiply to 3 are 1 and 3. Things that multiply to 7 are 1 and 7. And now I want to go ahead and place them in my factors. So 3x squared, this is going to be x and 3x. Now from here, we want to decide where to put 1 and 7. And so I'm going to bring in that third rule. For me, 20, I consider it a fairly large number in comparison to 3 and 7. And so I know my numbers, but I need to know how to place them to maximize my products. So here, do I want to multiply 3 by the 1 or the 7 in order to get close to 20? I want to multiply 3 times 7, and so think about how you FOIL. In order to get 3 times 7, I want my 7 in the first set, and I want my 1 in the second set. Now the other thing that we do need to keep in mind, if you noticed I did not put my signs in first, and I always save my signs for last in this section. So we can now talk about our signs. Remember that we still have the same rules. In order to multiply to a -7, we do have different signs. And now we do need to be careful. Instead of the larger number being negative, we want to make sure our larger product is negative. So if we look at our outsides and our insides, x times 1 is x. 7 times 3x is 21. And now which one's larger, my outsides or my insides? As my insides are larger, I'm going to make my 7 negative, and I'm going to make my 1 positive. Now for this section, I highly encourage you to multiply back out in order to check your answer. Do not sit there and just assume that what you came up with was correct. So if we go ahead and FOIL this now, out firsts we get x times 3x is 3x squared. Outsides, we get x times 1 is 1x, or x. Insides, -7 times 3x is -21x. And lasts, -7 times +1 is -7. This does combine to -20. And so we are good. All right. Let's try a couple more. Let's come over to example B. Okay, so 3, things that multiply to 3, we have 1 and 3. Same thing over here, we have 1 and 3. So let's go ahead and place our factors. 3m squared, that's going to be m, or 1m and 3m. And then now where do I want to place my 1 and 3? One thing to note is 3 and 3 have a common factor. So I know right away the 3 cannot go in my second set. It has to go in the first set because common factors, numbers with common factors, cannot go in the same set. And this one we don't get in trouble with our signs, but just to recall what it is, in order to multiply to a +3, we have same signs. Both are negative. All right, let's go ahead and multiply it out. If we multiply our firsts, m times 3m, we get 3m squared. Outsides, m times -1 is -m. Insides, -3 times 3m is -9m. And last, -3 times -1 is +3. This does combine to -10m, so we are good. All right, last one. Example C. All right, things that multiply to 3 is 1 and 3. Things that multiply to 2 is 1 and 2. So now if we go ahead and place our factors, let's see what we get. 3x squared, that's going to be 3x and x. Doesn't matter where I put them. 1 and 2. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see what we can do. This one, it's hard to decide where to put the 1 and 2, so let's just go ahead and do trial and error. Let's go ahead and put 2y here and 1y here. We do have different signs. And I want my larger quantity, my larger product, to be positive. So if we go ahead and multiply this out, or if we go ahead and look at this, which one's larger, 3xy or 2xy? Well, 3xy is larger. Notice here that I'm going to put my plus with my smaller number. I do that because when we multiply the outsides, it's actually bigger. And I'm going to put my minus sign inside. All right, if we go ahead and FOIL this now, we get first 3x squared. Outsides, we get 3xy. Insides, we get minus 2xy. And lasts, we get minus 2y squared. And if I combine this, 3 minus 2 is not 5, it's 1. So this one would be wrong. Now as you get more comfortable with this, then you'll be able to do this in fewer tries. In the meantime, make sure that when you do your factorizations, don't erase. I will tell you that when I first learned factorization, we did trial and error, and I had the tendency to erase my work, and I kept trying the same things over and over again, and eventually I would just get really frustrated. To avoid that mistake, if I had not erased my paper, I could have seen that I'd already tried something wrong, not done it again. So make sure that you do not make sure you don't erase so that you can see what you've already tried. Okay, so now how do we fix this? We still have our firsts, our 3x and x. And now what I want to do is I'm going to flip my lasts. Put y in the first set and 2y in the second set. All right, so now what's larger? Outsides, we get 6xy. Insides, we get 1xy. So my outsides is larger. I want that to be positive. My insides is smaller, so I want that to be negative. Now if we go ahead and FOIL this, we get 3x squared plus outsides is 6xy minus insides, I'm going to rewrite it as xy, minus the lasts, we get 2y squared. And if we combine this, this now does simplify to 5xy. Now for this problem, you could have used rule 3, is the middle number large or small? And 5, you may argue that this is a small number. But here, remember that because we have different signs, we're wanting to subtract to a 5. And so I would say 5 in this case is actually a rather large number. I want to maximize, and 2 and 3, there's only so big that it's going to get. And the largest it's going to get is 6. And in order to get to 6, we do need to multiply my 2 and 3, so we want to have them in different sets. All right, that takes care of level 1. And as I said, for this one, you have a 50-50 shot, as we saw in example C, of getting it right, because you know your numbers. It's just a matter of knowing where to place them. All right, let's go to our next level. Level 2, A or C is prime, which means that I do know how one of the numbers factors. So we're going to start by placing the factors for the prime number first. Keep in mind it can either be the firsts or the lasts. All right, so let's go ahead and try some examples of this and talk through them. Example A. The first thing that we notice is 2 is the prime number. So I can place my firsts in my factorization. I know that it's going to be y and 2y. All right, next thing we have is what multiplies to 6. I'm going to list out all my possible factors over on the side. And then now I want to decide which factors I want to pick. So let's start with rule 3. -1, that is about as small as you can get, which means that I want to pick numbers that are close together, the 2 and the 3. Now, 2, this 2 cannot go in this set, because remember, you cannot have two 2's in the same set of parentheses. That means I'm going to put my 2 in my first set, and I'm going to put my 3 in the second set. All right, now let's figure out our signs. We do have different signs, and I want my larger product to be negative. So which one is larger, outsides or insides? Outsides, we get 3y. Insides, we get 4y. Since 4y is bigger, I want to make that negative, so I'm going to make it a -2, and I'm going to make this a +3. All right, if we go ahead and FOIL this, first we get y times 2y is 2y squared. Outsides, y times 3 is 3y. Insides, -2 times 2y is -4y. And lasts, we get -6. If we go ahead and combine, 3y minus 4y is equal to -y, and so that does check out. All right, let's look at example B. Example B, the first thing that I notice is that it's my lasts that is prime. So I know this is going to be 1 and 3. Again, don't get thrown off with the multiple variables running around. Just like with the W's, we're going to just put a V in each term. And then now I want to know what multiplies to 4. I got two options. Now, if I look at my problem again, I notice that my middle number is odd, which means that I do not want a pair of even numbers. That leaves me with the 1 and the 4. So now, where do I want to put them? So again, 7, do you consider it large or small? In this case, I consider it small. And basically, it boils down to, do I want to multiply the 3 here by 1 or by 4? If I multiply it by 4, I'm going to get to 12. And 12's not, I'm not going to be able to get to 7 from 12. So with that in mind, I do not want to multiply 4 times 3. So I'm going to put it in the same set as the 3. That leaves me with the W over here. For this problem, for our signs, we are multiplying to a positive, so that tells me same. And both are positive. All right, let's go ahead and FOIL this out. First, we get 4w squared. Outsides, we get 3wv. Insides, we get 4wv. And lasts, we get 3v squared. My middle terms combine to give me 7wv, so this does check out. All right, last one for this level. Let's look at example C. All right, my prime is the 3. So I know that my firsts are going to be x and 3x. Okay, things that multiply to 16. We have 1 and 16, 2 and 8, 4 and 4. All right, let's see what we got here. 22 is an even number. That means I can go ahead and get rid of the 1 and 16. I need a pair of even numbers in order to get to 22. All right, so which one do I want to work with? Do I consider 22 large or small? Well, for this problem, I consider 22 to be large, mostly because we do have different signs, which means I want to subtract to 22. I need to get my numbers to be pretty high up there. And so multiplying 3 times 4 gets me to 12. That's not near 22. So I think 4 and 4, that would be if I wanted to minimize it. I don't think that's what I want. I think I want the 2 and the 8. So now what do I want to multiply my 3 by in order to get close to 22? Well, 3 times 2 is 6. That's not near 22. 3 times 8 is 24, and that's about as close as I can get to 22. So I'm going to want to multiply 3 times 8. In order to multiply 3 times 8, I want my 8 in my first set. And I want my 2 in my second set. We did say different signs. And I want my larger product to be positive. So outsides, I get 2x. Insides, I get 24x. I want my 24 to be positive, which means I want my 8 to be positive. We'll make the 2 negative. All right, let's go ahead and FOIL this now. First, we get 3x squared. Outsides, we get minus 2x. Insides, we get 24x. And lasts, we get minus 16. My middle two terms combine to give me 22x. This is correct. All right, so that's level 2. So note that there is a little bit of work involved. There's a little bit more thinking going on here. So now let's talk about level 3. Level 3, this is the one that the 3 rules can really be helpful on. So one of the issues with this level is we have to worry about both numbers. We don't know how either one of them factor. So let's start with example A. Let's start off by listing things that multiply to 6. And I'm also going to list out my things that multiply to 15. From here, I want to know can I cancel anything out? And at the moment, I can't do anything. I don't have any pairs of even numbers that will cancel out yet. But we can use Rule 3. Do you consider 19 to be a big or small number? For this example, I consider 19 to be a rather small number in comparison to 6 and 15. And one of the main reasons that I say small is we do have same signs, which means I need to add to 19. With that in mind, I think that we can rule out our extremes. I don't think I want to go with 1 and 6 or with 1 and 15 on this one. So let's go ahead and start with our smaller numbers and see what happens. So I'm going to start with my 6. I think it's 2x and 3x. For my 3 and 5, my 3 has to go in the first set. It cannot go in the same set as the 3x because they have common factors. So that means my 5 will have to go here. All right, so we do have our numbers placed now. So now let's go ahead and multiply. Let's figure out our signs first. We said they were the same. They are both positive. And now let's go ahead and FOIL. Firsts, we get 6x squared. Outsides, we get 10x. Insides, we get 9x. And lasts, we get 15. If we combine, we do get 19x. And so this is the correct factorization. All right, let's look at B. All right, let's start with our factorization. So 4, what multiplies to 4? We get 1 and 4, 2 and 2. 15, we get 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. Okay, so for this problem, let's see if we can rule anything out right off the top of the problem. We are trying to combine to an odd number. I do not want 2 even factors. So I'm going to get rid of my 2 and 2. All right, so that makes this problem a lot easier. I know that my firsts have to be y and 4y. All right, now for my 15, let's see what we can do. Me personally, 17, I consider it to be I don't consider it to be a very small number, but I don't consider it to be a very large number either. Either way, I really don't feel like 1 and 15 are the right options for this one. I think 3 and 5 are a little better. Now we do need to be careful because depending on what our operation is, whether we're adding or subtracting, both of them will get us to 17. So we need to be very careful on this and remember that we have different signs, meaning I want to subtract to 17. So does that mean I want to multiply 4 times 3 or 4 times 5? Well, if I multiply 4 times 3, that gets me to 12, and I'm not going to be able to subtract 17. So I actually want to multiply 4 times the 5. I'm going to put my 5 in the first set, my 3 in the second set. All right, I also want my larger product to be negative. Which one is larger, outsides or insides? Outsides we get 3, insides we get 20. Since 20 is larger, I want my 5 to be negative, and I want my 3 to be positive. If we go ahead and FOIL this out just to check it, my first, we get 4y squared. Outsides, we get 3y. Insides, we get minus 20y. And lasts, we get minus 15. If we combine, we do get negative 17y. All right, last one. All right, let's see what we got here. Things that multiply to 20. We have 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Things that multiply to 8. We have 1 and 8, 2 and 4. Okay, some things that we can get rid of right off the top. We can get rid of 2 and 10, and we can get rid of 2 and 4. Because 27 is an odd number, I do not want to go with a pair of even numbers. So that does leave me only one possibility for my lasts. I know my lasts are going to be 1 and 8. Now this is already kind of maximizing it. How many of you are feeling like 1 and 20 is a good option? And for me, the answer is I don't want to work with 1 and 20. 20 cannot go in this set since 20 and 8 are both divisible by 4, which means it would have to go over here. Well, if we put it over here, we're going to have to multiply 20 times 8, which is 160, and that's nowhere near 27. So I think we can go ahead and say 120 is not a viable solution. That leaves me with just the 4 and the 5. Now I'm going to use rule 1 again. 4 and 8 cannot go in the same set since they are both divisible by 4. That means 4x is going to have to go in the first set. 5x will have to go in the second set. All right, so let's see what we got here. We got different signs. And I want my larger product to be positive. So now which one is larger? Outsides we get 32. Insides we get 5. 32 is larger. So I want my 8 to be positive and my 1 to be negative. All right, let's go ahead and FOIL this now. If we FOIL, first we get 20x squared. Outsides we get 32x. Insides we get minus 5x. And lasts we get minus 8. This does simplify to 27x, so this is the correct factorization. All right, that takes care of Sarah's method for factoring. As I said, I'm going to upload a second presentation for this section that goes through something called the AC method. I personally don't care how you factor as long as I can see that you are doing it yourself and that you are not using other programs to help you with it. Okay, go ahead, take a quick break, and then we'll come back and look at some more problems for this section.